everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an unhaul. So basically, these are the books I've decided to unhaul in the months of July, August, and September. I have read most of them, and I think for the most part, looking at this pile, of the ones I've actually read, most of them I enjoyed, but I can't see myself rereading, so that is why I'm unhauling them. I have a few books I DNF'd, and then one that, when I get to it, you'll totally understand why I'm unhauling it. So let's dive into the books I read, enjoyed, but don't necessarily see myself rereading. First, we have The Silver Door by Emily Rhoda. This is the second book in the Three Doors trilogy. I've enjoyed both the books in this series, but it's not one I can picture myself rereading. And I'd rather get this book into the hands of a middle grader who will maybe enjoy the series more than I do. Next, I have Miss Ellicott's School for the Magically Minded by Sage Blackwood. This is a middle grade fantasy that follows a girl named Shanta who goes to a school where she's supposed to learn how to be a lady and use magic, and she's far more into the magic usage than the lady part. And then one day all the sorceresses go missing, including the one that takes care of Chantal in the school. And Chantal has to figure out what has happened to them because they also are responsible for protecting the city, and she ends up going on a journey of self-discovery. I thought this was an interesting book, but it wasn't my favorite, and it's another one that I'm like, I can't see myself rereading it, so why keep it on my shelves? Next, I read All Standing, The Remarkable Story of the Jeannie Johnston, the Legendary Irish Famine Ship by Catherine Miles. This is a nonfiction that talks about the Jeannie Johnston, who is famous for being a ship that brought Irish people to North America, and famously did not lose a passenger when so many other famine ships that were doing the same journey lost so many people, because so many people died from getting sick on this journey. And this talks about why this ship was different and how it managed to keep all of its passengers alive. Because it's a nonfiction, I probably won't reread it, so it's another one I'd rather pass on to somebody who is interested in it. Next, I'm going to be unhauling Seven Black Diamonds and its sequel, One Blood Ruby by Melissa Marr. I read Seven Black Diamonds and it was alright. I can't necessarily see myself reading One Blood Ruby, so since I have both of them, I figured I might as well unhaul it because it wasn't my favorite series. I think we're following a girl named Lily? Yeah, Lily, who is half fae and half human, and the queen of the fae is after her for some reason, and I know the queen of the fae wants revenge on the human population because they believe they contributed to like the death of her daughter or something, and she has a band of mercenaries known as the Seven Black Diamonds, and they target Lily to join their ranks. It wasn't my favorite book, and I don't plan to read the sequel, but if I do, it would be an audiobook, so I might as well unhaul them and clear up some room on my shelves. Next, I have These Witches Don't Burn by Isabella Sterling, and I've had this for a while, but I was looking at my YA shelves and kind of going through them. The next few books will be in that vein, and I realized I don't remember too much about this. It hasn't really stuck with me. Half the reason I kept it is because I thought the cover was cool, and it's just not one I can see myself rereading, and so I'd rather get it off my shelf and free up some room for books I do see myself rereading. Like I said, in that same vein, I have The Winter's Kiss, The Winter's Crime, and The Winter's Curse by Mary Rutkowski. By Mary Rutkowski. And this is a YA trilogy, and I legitimately do not remember what these are about. I think I enjoyed them, but I'm getting far more away from wanting to read YA fantasy. It's just not my jam anymore because I feel like, A, I've read them all, and B, if I'm going to read a YA fantasy, I want to read one that feels different. And this one, it didn't stick with me. I don't remember much about it. I know I read it, I enjoyed it at the time, but I'd rather get it into the hands of maybe an actual teenager who will enjoy it more than I did. And lastly, in that vein, I have Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book in the Caraval series, and the reason I am unhauling this is because I think I gave this book 4.5 stars, so it sounds weird that I would unhaul it, but I didn't like book 1 and I didn't like book 3. Well, I mean, I liked book 1. I liked book 1 enough to read book 2, especially considering I own book 2. But I can't see myself ever rereading the series. I could see myself maybe rereading this book, but I can't see myself rereading the series. So why would I hang on to this book when I will never read books 1 and 3? And it's going to be really hard to remember the finer details of the story as a whole if I'm not going to reread book 1 to reread book 3. So I'm unhauling this. Next, I have a stack of contemporary middle grades that were good, but weren't my favorite. And I would rather get them into the hands of a middle grader, and that's Where the Watermelons Grow by Cindy Baldwin. And this is dealing with a young girl who wakes up one night and finds her mom talking to people who aren't there while picking all the seeds out of a watermelon. And basically, her mom's illness is back, and I believe her mom has schizophrenia, and she has to try to deal with the fact that her mom's illness is back and the seriousness of that. And I definitely think it is important to expose younger readers to these kinds of things, as they will definitely interact with people who have mental illnesses. And so it's an important book that I think middle graders should read. It just wasn't my favorite middle grade. I'm not the target audience, so maybe that is part of why it wasn't my favorite middle grade. In that same vein, we have Sticky Notes by Diane Tuthall, and this is dealing with a boy whose father has early onset Alzheimer's, and it progresses rapidly, and he is struggling to deal with the fact that his father, who he adores and has always told him stories, is forgetting everything, including the stories his dad used to tell him. So again, I didn't necessarily love the way everything was handled in this book, but I do think it's an important book to get in the hands of middle graders. And again, maybe because I'm older, I don't connect with the way it was written the way a middle grader might. So maybe it is written on their level, and I'm just, as an adult, not critiquing it the way a middle grader would. So again, another important book that I would love to get in the hands of a middle grader. And the last book is The Astonishing Maybe by Shanta Grimes. And this is another book where we have characters who have some mental health issues, and it wasn't my favorite in execution, but I did enjoy it, and I would love to get this book into the hands of a middle grader who, again, may need to deal with these issues and will feel connected to this book in a way that I didn't. Next, I've got Good Karma by Christina Kelly, and I DNF'd this book. I think I got like 70 or so pages into it, and I was just bored out of my mind, and I can't see myself reading it, so I decided to DNF it. And I actually looked at some reviews, and based on the reviews, I made the right choice, because it sounds like some of the things that I already didn't like don't get resolved in a way that I would have enjoyed anyways, so I'm getting rid of this. Next, I'm unhauling A Bat in the Belfry by Sarah Graves. This is like the 16th book in the A Home Repairs Homicide Mystery series, and I started listening to the first book on audiobook, thinking I would check the series out, and if I didn't like it, I could always unhaul this one. And if I did, I already had a copy of this, because as you can see, I got it for $1. It was cheap. And I think I made it like half an hour into the audiobook and was just like, there's no way, because the woman is talking about the fact that there is a skunk hiding under their porch. Like like a skunk is living under the porch, and they were talking about how they didn't want to trap it because they didn't want to accidentally get sprayed. So they thought about poisoning it, but then they didn't want the body to essentially be living under the house and decaying. So she had a local hunter come over and like implied that they shot the thing. And I don't think that the best way to deal with wild animals is to shoot them. And I think he might have even mentioned shooting squirrels while he was over there. And I do not like hunting. I don't like guns. And if I had a skunk living underneath my porch, I would want to find a humane way to relocate it to somewhere where it could live that was not under my porch. So I basically said, yeah, I'm not going to continue on with this book, so I'm unhauling this one. Next, I'm unhauling Light as a Feather by Zoe Arston. I basically just went through some of my shelves while I was reorganizing my books and saw the description of this, and it just does not appeal to me anymore, so I decided it was time to get rid of it. And the last book I'm unhauling is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Parts 1 and 2 by J.K. Rowling. I've never read this. So, obviously, I don't need a J.K. Rowling book in my life because, well, she's an awful human being, and I don't agree with what she says. Especially as somebody who is non-binary, I find the things she has said extremely hurtful. So, I definitely don't need to have this book on my shelves. But even before that, it was one that I couldn't have seen myself reading, because I've heard nothing but horrible, horrible, horrible things about this book and the awful things it does with the retconning of the series. So I think it's time to let this one go and get it off my shelves, because there is no way I am reading this now, especially given what she said. But even before that, I was never going to pick it up, if I'm being honest. So those are the books that I have unhauled. What is a book that you have unhauled recently? If you've made it this far in the video, leave me a thumbs down emoji. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!